day, dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies. Ain't done that in a while, Doug, but we had to get it going for this podcast. I got one of the OGs on here. So, Doug, one, I want you to introduce yourself and kind of give your background. You've been following us for a really long time. We've, had so many different years and collaborations and different players and all these other things that, we've done, from over the years. And I kind of just wanted, we're going to start these little mini series where we're going through a lot of people that have come to the retreats and things. I think I really wanted to touch on, I think not only you guys, I told you guys when you first came out, how you guys were the first group and you're making this plunge with us. And as we were starting this new venture, but also too, I think the way that, I think it's no doubt that the way that God's working through your guys' hearts and your minds and, the transitions that you've made, how you've innovated, how you pulled things in, I think is really helpful for a lot of different coaches. And I was telling you before we jumped on the air, I think that's something that God's really put on my heart is this certain community of coaches that I'm really trying to reach. And I thought that, I got to tap on some of the other guys in my community that I felt like could really help some of the coaches with those transitions and really push the game forward. So anyways, yeah, go ahead and Doug, go ahead and give them your, let them know who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my name's Doug Adams. I'm currently the head baseball coach at Clark State College in Ohio, a D2 JUCO. It's my first season there. Was the head coach at Dayton Christian for the last 8 years before this, with 8 straight conference championships. I own a facility in Moraine, Ohio, called P413 Baseball or P413 Sports. We have an organization, P413 Baseball, which used to be Canes Baseball. Starting back in 2003. Our first season was 2003. I've been coaching ever since. I love the hitting side. I've studied everybody else. I think I started looking at your stuff about 2018, 2019, and kind of getting through. I came out to Vegas in 23 and watched Cody do some stuff, and he's amazing. And then you came back after a church thing that night, and we got to break down some video, and you answered questions and all that. And then I was fortunate enough to come out to the first coaches retreat, this past fall during our season. So I actually had to skip out on the final day, which kind of stunk. That's why I want to come back again. I'm planning to, but it was a really cool experience. Part of the joke about, our guys is, we use water bags even pregame around the turtle. If you come to a Clark State baseball game, you see the farm bags and sometimes the surfboard, depending on what a guy's working on, right, is what we call it, pregame, and they do it before they ever get in the cage. So it's something that we really believe in. Learned a lot, with the coaches retreat. So like I said, I've been doing this a long time and work with a lot of great hitters, both baseball and softball now. And you can look it up all my hitting stuff on Instagram at DA Hitting. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, love it. No, I think one of the things that I was kind of telling you about beforehand is I know that a lot of coaches, they can look at these events and maybe they're like, like a farm retreat. And I know that, we've done interviews and things like that when you were here, and, we put some of those things out. But what specifically here that I wanted to touch on is for the coaches themselves is I know a lot of people can look at events like this or, even some of the things that we dive into, right? That I can get in the weeds and we get, I can go down deep paths of the science. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people can be like, that's really cool. That's awesome. That event looks really awesome. But also maybe that event's not for me, or maybe that stuff is not, like it's awesome. I love that coaches are doing that or, exploring those things. And I love that those things are out there and I don't have anything negative to say, right. Or any of the things. I think it's cool, but maybe I just feel like it's not for me as a coach. And the reason I wanted you to maybe touch on this piece and maybe that thought process is, like me, the same thing. A lot of people forget. I was telling you off air. I was like, look, I'm just some broke kid from Las Vegas that, over the years just kept investing in education and kept wanting to learn and help my players and all those things. And it led to where a lot of the things that I do now. But I know you as well, right? coming from the background that you had, and especially within club ball and all those things, right? And coming through the facility side now also too, where you're on you kind of hit on some different demographics now on also to the college coaching side. I wanted you to kind of maybe share your perspective of how you viewed some of these things as you continued to learn over the years, and kind of where your mind has gone as you explored some of this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously growing up, I played for an old school coach who, was the standard old this and that, you know what I mean? Everything we've all been taught. And I've just realized that I couldn't reach every player, right? So a guy would hit with me and he would struggle. And I wanted more answers. Why is this guy? Why does it work for this guy? Why does it not work for this guy? So I started studying. And there's some stuff out there that I'm just be honest, doesn't make sense to me mentally. When I got into the weeds with you, it did. And it gave me the ability to learn a lot and why, some of the whys, right? And I think the whys are important because we can't tell the hitter why, they're not going to be successful. But not only that, the hitter doesn't need to know everything that I know, right? As long as I can help the hitter get to the feel that they need to feel, they don't have to do all the work that I'm doing right now to help them, right? You don't have to be a genius to hit a baseball, right? A lot of guys have done it for a long time. So, I mean, I think it's anything we can do that can simplify the game for them and how they move and stuff and, things like that. I think is something that is massive. From a coaching perspective, the first time I came out, I was probably a little intimidated by the scenario, you know what I mean, and all that. But I realized that if I get one thing from working with you that I can take back to a player, they're better, right? I don't need to get all of it. Now I do study a lot of it and I do love it. And I still hit you with questions and videos and things like that. But I mean, I think it's something that you don't know what you're missing until you experience it. And even if the hitting stuff wasn't on point, which it was a great week when we were out in Vegas with the coaching retreat. The networking, talking to other coaches, even guys that are, high school coaches, college coaches, facility owners, right? Being able to have those conversations and that networking is also stuff that you can help with, right? You can also learn from those guys while they're there. And some of my favorite things at the retreat were the hour before or the night we did dinner, right? Where we could just network and, just be together and have camaraderie and kind of learn together and then kind of review with, hey, what do you think of this? I never heard it explained that way. And it was just an absolutely awesome week. And it's something that I think anybody who wants to be a great hitting coach should attend because it's going to take you to another level. Because even if you don't agree with some of the things, there's always an explanation as to why. Me, for example, I was never a big water bag guy. Before the retreat, right? I didn't do them. We did a lot of other stuff from the farm with the boards and the OGs and the Macs and things like that. You know what I mean? But once I kind of said it and I got to feel it, that was a little different, right? When you feel it, it's a little different. And it made a massive difference in what now I do with players.
Yeah, no, I love that. And also too, I think like you said too, as well as that's one of the reasons that we also try to make it more of like an intimate setting, like you said, right? It's not 100 coaches in the room, 60 coaches in the room, and you don't want to ask questions and you don't get there's no cutaway time where, even like big events like the ABCA and stuff like that, right? You got the cutaway sessions where you can kind of do a Q&A, but still, right? There's might be 40 coaches sitting there and you're in a big room, cameras are all and all the things where it's just like, in this setting, when we break away and, sometimes like you said, right? Like we're eating lunch together and all of a sudden we're chatting it up. We're spending an extra 30 minutes talking about something specific. I think that creates a very different environment. And like you, I've attended so many different events and got to kind of feel, what are things that I would like to have or other things. And I think uniquely from there, I wanted to kind of create that side. And like you said, this last retreat that we had, we also had like 3 different guys that have been in pro organizations in recent years. One of them that's, still is with the Orioles now. And they were, here too as well. So you got pro organizations, things like that too as well. But in the same room, you also had coaches that are assistant high school baseball coaches or first year coaches in college, right? So it's like you got this unique dynamic environment. And I think that's also that makes it, super interesting from that side. I one of the things I wanted to touch on there specifically, and you brought it up, Doug, so we're gonna have to walk into it now, is, some of the stuff, like the water bags, like it was funny during that event, I made it funny and we were playing around with it, and some of those things as a coach too. But I think also on the other side of that, the reason I wanted to bring that up is that still as coaches, right? man, there could be so many things that even at one point, there's same for me, right? There's things that I'm like, like there's certain things I don't like this because of this, or maybe I think that there's limit, or maybe I just don't understand, like I didn't connect with all the reasons why it would be important, or maybe, is this another gimmick thing? People are trying to sell things to me all the time, X, Y, and Z. But I think in those environments, one of the things too, specifically, like you said, is we try to have those activity times, right? And that was, for example, when we're utilizing some of the water bags and explaining like, hey, like this is why, this is how we would use it, things like that too as well. What would you say, specifically in that area, not so much just specifically about the water bags, but what would you say about that? Like as a coach, if you're giving advice to other coaches that to, like I've been exploring the idea again. There's a book called Think Again. And if you haven't read it, Doug, I would recommend reading it too. It's just how sometimes we get tied to our ideas, and we get tied to our identity gets tied to what we think, what we believe, what we've experienced, and can get closed off to new things. But I know that you're a coach that is, continues to evolve, that continues to learn, that continues to grow, that continues to do those other things. Coming from that, like you mentioned, from more of an old school type, upbringing, and then continuing to evolve. What would you say for you is things like, why would you even come to an event like this, right? Why can't you just keep coaching and, just keep staying in your environments that, you're already in? And, why would you prioritize coming to something like this?
Well, the first reason would be it's not about me. It's about the athletes that I'm around, right? And I think for me, it's very important that we put them first. And to put them first, you got to keep learning. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. That's just the truth. And I think as a coach, we all have to learn to open our minds and understand that there may be a thing or two that we don't agree with, that if we study more or actually understand, that it may help 3% of the athletes you work with. But in my opinion, if this class or this retreat 1 week helps 2 of my 130 athletes that I work with throughout the year, it was worth it. Right. And you know what I mean? So, I think that's really, really important that we understand it's not about us. We have to continue to open up and learn and listen and understand that we're not the priority here. The athletes that are in our cages are.
Yeah, no, love that. And also, the thing I always say to people too, like, hey, like, I'm not here to convince you, right? I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to do any things. If anything, I'm just trying to share my experiences and saying, hey, this is how I've got results with these athletes, and these how, again, this is how, for example, I think it's one of the most old school things possible is just to listen to people that have had experience in certain areas that I haven't. That's the same way I learned, the same way, right? It's like, if I did this with this guy that's making, $30-40 million a year, and this had some success there or doing X, Y, and Z, well, man, I want to know. That's how I learned. I learned from all these guys by mentoring them and listening to what they did and what they, from their experiences. And, I think that old school thing of like having respect for our elders or other things, right? It's like, it's not so much just that they're older, but they've had experiences and they've done things, and a respect for, some of those things too, as well. And in my mind with that too, as well, I almost feel selfish to try to like hold those things from other people, right? And so if anything, I was just shooting a video the other day and I'm like, I want to give you everything. Like I want you to have, so like the same thing, Doug's likewise back the other way, right? Is like, I want to give you everything where you're the most successful you could be, that everything that I've learned, everything that I've studied, every little bit of, I can't take it with me, right? I want to give it all away. I want to give it all away. I want to pass it on. I want to leave it better than I found it. I want my work to, again, the effort, the hours that I'm up late or any of those things, I want them to go into coaches and for them to have success, have crazy success with their athletes. And I want the athletes to have crazy success. I'm not trying to hold those things. And, it's not even about me. Like you said, it's not about me. It's about, I want it for you, and you know what? I get that a lot of coaches might not have the time or, again, and when I say that, I don't mean it like, oh, you're just not prioritizing it. I mean it like, all day long, I get to think about hitting. All day long, I get to study. All day long, I get to, I'm blessed in those ways. So if I have certain time and I've figured something out that I think that could really help you on the field, I'm like, I feel like I'm an extension of the coaching staff, right? If I could just bring something of offering and help a player that's thousands of miles away from me that might never even meet me, but somehow, we have an impact, through as well. I mean, I think I feel like almost like a duty in my own way. And I know your heart in the same way too, is like, I've seen how you are with athletes, even in our facility, and also too with your own athletes, and that being your heart too as well. And I want, that's why it kind of led me to this next thought too, is what were you expecting? Like before you came to the event, I know that you had, obviously you've come out, we've had many conversations, all those other things, what do you kind of take me through that? Like, what were you expecting? And then second question onto that, how was that in relation to what you actually experienced, and connect that for me?
So, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think the first thing I expected a sales pitch. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you show up expecting a little bit of a sales pitch. Well, I can tell you that this thing has not left my side, has not left my hitting bag since I got back. But I showed up to this thing, right? And it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I refer to it probably, I'm going to say at least still 2-3 times a week, right? It stays in my hitting bag all times. I expected to show up to a sales pitch. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is why you should buy this. This is why you should buy that. It wasn't at all. It was, how can I help you help your athletes? And it was well structured, with, the planes of motion and the basic structure and the fascial slings and action and things like that. And I mean, it was hands on. Like, you would call somebody up and you would stretch us out so we could feel it. You know what I mean? And looking at each other's posture, and then talking about the pelvis and things like that, and anatomy. And it's so funny. Like, that's our kids. Like, it's now an inside joke if we're playing a team and they're struggling. They're like, "Oh, look at their pelvis." And, like, now my players are joking about it. They're like, "Hey, coach, what would you do with that? What do you think about his pelvis?" And, like, they're being complete pricks and just joking around with me. But it's something that we always talk about, like in the stance and how they stand, and the scissor, and you know what I mean, and the posterior and anterior tilts, and all that stuff is crucial. And it kind of changed how I thought about things. And so now it's like, you walk up and you're talking to somebody and you see how they stand, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this," like, you're thinking it in your head, you kind of program that. So honestly, I was expecting a sales pitch, and it wasn't that at all. It was, basically, you showed up and you said, "Here's everything we have. How can I help you understand? How can I help you help your athletes?" And it was incredible.
Yeah, no. And then I think it's so funny, like you're saying that too, as well. It's like, especially as a head coach, right? You can start using some of those things that about hitters, where when you see that guy at the plate and you see the shapes and everything they create, you're like, oh, well, you know how to pitch to them. You know what they're going to struggle with, and so it helps you on both sides. It's like, yes, as a hitting coach, what I'm going to do with my hitters, but also helps me game plan against somebody else's hitters. And, I think that's, is always a big piece from there. One of the things, it's so funny because, Doug, you're starting to walk into the land, is like, even some of the things that you're just talking about now, anteriorly pelvic tilt or posterior tilts or resting postures, or any of these things you kind of brought up to another coach, right? He's hearing you say these things and he's like, whoa, immediately over his head, right? Like immediately over his head, like, what the heck are you talking about? How does this, again, you would feel intimidating to another, group now, right? And so again, I want welcome to this space of like, no. Like, I know it's like, I learned these things in little pieces too. It wasn't, it wasn't like all of a sudden, like, I'm a baseball guy just like you. I had such a passion for it that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to help more athletes, all these other things. But what would you say that for you too as well, right? Like, again, like you said, you've been coaching a long time, and you've experienced a lot of these, different ways to look at athletes and some of those other things too. What would you say from that, right? Like with some guy that's like listening to you say some of those things, give him some perspective on like how far, and, like, you've come as a coach in those areas where, again, I know that some of these things immediately, some guys like, oh, okay, well, that guy's into that. These are all these things. And I know you, and I've seen how far you've also, grown as a coach too. And I kind of just wanted you to open that piece up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was terrifying to me when we first started going, because I mean, you have to, first off, you have to admit to yourself you don't know everything, right? And that's kind of intimidating a little bit. Second, I mean, you just got to get in and give it a shot. I mean, it's amazing, and it's like, I don't have a degree in kinesiology, right? I'm just a baseball coach, so it's not it's not the hardest thing in the world to learn if you understand what you're looking for. And it's one of the reasons why I'm going to do another farm retreat, because I want to, now that I know a little bit, I'm like, man, I really should have listened more in this section because I don't understand that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So I think it's something that if you just give it an opportunity, you're going to grow so much. And it's not intimidating, and it's not abrasive, and it's not, nobody talks over your head when you're here, when
Yeah.
you're there, when you make the trip out to see you, nobody's talking down to you. And I think that's the biggest thing as a coach that I would be concerned, talk down to me and I'm going to feel stupid. That was
Yeah.
never the case. It was what,
Mm.
oh, okay. And it was just a conversation. What do you ever think about this? Oh, well, no, I have never thought about that. So
Mm.
I do think that's something that's very, very important, that you know that if you go out to the coaching retreat, nobody's going to talk down to you. Everybody's happy that you're there. Everybody's going to listen to your side, and you know what I mean. And then, you, like I said, lunch every day. The hour before or half hour before, I don't remember, before we got started. You know me, I came with 3 or 4 questions in the morning and said, "Hey,
Yep.
thinking about yesterday, here's what I got." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was really, really good. And obviously, I picked Cody's brain too because Cody's a stud.
Yeah.
And just everybody there is so open, and obviously Taylor's been awesome throughout the years, and helping me get with everything connected. So everybody's so open. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about some stuff that maybe would spook, me 5 years ago, but it's not as hard as it makes it sound.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is too, I think it's, for me, it's a big thing too. It's like, in that book, it talks about that. And again, I go back and read it from time to time. I've actually been thinking about that book a lot more lately because I've been having this heart for this community of coaches, and I'm like, man, like what's holding, again, I want to unlock the human, right? I want to unlock, just like we do for our players. It's not about just their swing or this or whatever. You guys all know, everybody that coaches players know that it's not just physically what's going on, right? Like there's things in their soul that is holding them back, right? And I call it like spiritual ties, right? There's certain things they're trying to prove to everybody. They're trying to, they feel like they're not enough, whatever those things are, right? Like everybody, all these players have these roots, and coaches, what are we, big kids? Like we're the same thing too as well, right? We have the same ties, and there's certain things in our own lives that are holding us back from being able to, to coach at higher levels, to perform at higher levels, to help more players. And there's areas that make us feel insecure. There's things that make us, I couldn't learn, like that's not me. That's, this is who I am. This is what I believe. And it's like, hey, like, you don't have to defend a hill your whole life, right? It's not about defending what and all the things. Like, hey, I could ever be growing. I mean, I likewise hope the same thing back the other way. I didn't know 99% of everything that I now know, can help with athletes. And I didn't know any of those things either. Again, the same thing. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I didn't graduate with my bachelor's degree. And also too, on top of that, I learned, I've read more books. I've studied more textbooks, all those things since I've been out of college. And it all was from, not because I wanted to be the smartest guy, but more like you said, wanted to help as many coaches as possible. And along that path, there was a lot of things like internal battles, right? That like you've talked about too, right? That I've had to get past, where it's like, well, I don't want to ask that question because I don't want people to think I'm dumb, or maybe I think that's, X, Y, and Z. And that's where for me right now is like a main focus is, yeah, I want to help our players, but I know one of the main ways I can help our players is I can't train every athlete. I can't, eval every athlete. I would never get a fraction. I mean, I'll probably train 0.0008% of every athlete again, in my life. But more than anything, I know that coaches, I really do believe that coaches have such a major impact on players' lives and how they see themselves. And I feel like that's really the multiplier. So in that way, I really wanted to help coaches with that internal battle and things that are going on from that way too. So I think one of the things I've been thinking about, like I said, from that book, the reason that was so important for me was, there's these things that we get tied to, like, right, where I have to go and like defend what I do know and what I've seen work and all these things. And it's like, more than anything, like you said, I try to create an environment where it's more like, no, let's talk about why what you have done has worked. And let's also talk about it could be right, and there can also still be more, right? And I think that's always the case, right? Okay, I've helped athletes, and yes, I've gotten them better, but also too, I believe that I can continuously get better. I believe that there's more to know. I believe that when I pass away, there'll still be plenty of knowledge that I don't have. I still believe that there'll be better coaches continually that will stand on top of the shoulders of one another and will keep learning throughout the years of how to be, how to be better within our constraints and our environments. And I think for you, what would you say for you throughout this journey of learning and growing and expanding and all those things internally? What do you think that has been your biggest internal battle that you felt like you've had to evolve through so that you could kind of be the coach that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, lack of confidence, because I never did it at a high level, probably, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was never a good player. So
Yeah.
it was something that I had to overcome that, can I really teach this if I was never good at it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was a bad high school player, right? So
Yeah.
so I think that was important. And then the other thing is, and I still deal with it with other coaches that I talk to and guys that work at our facility, I'm not saying the stuff you've been taught is wrong.
Yeah.
There's just more to it.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the stuff you teach is excellent. Like, there's been guys that have been doing it for a lot of years because there's been success with it. But
Yeah.
just because I'm showing something new doesn't mean that your stuff is bad. Right.
For sure.
There's a place for both.
Yeah.
Right. And then the ability to get over the fact, like I said, that I wasn't a great player. Right. I just loved the game and wouldn't stop studying it.
Yeah.
And it's been a lifelong obsession of mine to study the game and try to learn every piece of it I can learn. It's why, I work with guys like Juan Espinoza, you know what I mean, and Xavier Turner, played Vandy and all these guys, because like I want to be around really smart people, Frank Russo, you know what I mean, these guys. I want to be around really smart people and pick their brains and try to take one nugget from every person that I'm in contact with that can help our athletes. And so, I mean, I think once you can get over the fact that just because it was taught this way doesn't mean that way's bad, just because I'm teaching something a little different.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean your way's bad. So, I mean, I think that's something that I really had to get over, and I had to have the confidence to look at them and go, I get what you're saying, but I also do it this way. You know what I mean? And try to let them know that just because it's a little different doesn't mean it's bad. I still respect your way and how you teach it.
For sure. Yeah, no, and I think the other thing is a big unlock there too as well, if I can add on to your point, is I don't need to be a better baseball player than that guy to help that guy be a better baseball player. You get what I'm saying? We all know that we can learn nuggets from anybody. I mean, there's people that might be like, for example, I remember thinking this when I was a regional manager at Planet Fitness years and years ago now, is, I had a guy that worked for us for the first day, and he's walking through, we're going through, I'm telling him how we do things and why we run it the way that we do. And he's like, he's been working in cleaning for 20 plus years, right? He's cleaned all these different facilities, all this stuff. And he goes, oh, that's interesting that you guys use this chemical. Well, we use this chemical because it actually helped. Yeah, it does what you're saying, but also did this too. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe we'll try that out. Or like, this is the guy's first day on the job, right? But he has all this experience that he doesn't do it like us. We've had tremendous success as an organization. He's an individual that has worked for different organizations, and he just came and offered us some perspective. And then also too, then he thought about that. He's like, oh yeah. And then also when we do it like this helps with that because this keeps this product wet and then it collects dust and all the things. It's like, oh, I've never thought about before. That's interesting. Like, thank you. That like, okay, we'll put that in and maybe why we're doing this and that. So it doesn't matter. What I mean by that is he doesn't need to own his own franchise, and he doesn't need to have a bigger business than Planet Fitness has or whatever, right? That we can learn from him. And I think the same exact way too as well, right? I work with athletes that I would never even sniff the shoes of how good they were, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that, for example, you don't need to be a better player than them to maybe help them with their nutrition. You don't need to be a better player than them than to help them with something they're doing in the weight room. You don't need to be a better player than them, right? Like almost everybody that is around them, more than likely, maybe it's how they see themselves. Maybe it's how they love themselves, how they respond to criticism, how, maybe these internal battles that they have themselves is, we don't need to be exponentially better as a player to actually help somebody in their life. And I think that's the same way too as well. And especially if you look at it from like, let's say like being a parent, right? Your kid, hopefully, right? You want them to have a better life. You want them to have a better life. You want them to experience things, and maybe they're going to achieve way more than you did. It doesn't mean that you can't help them along that route. I don't need to be everything. I don't need to be their only source. I don't need to be, it's not a comparison game between me and them. I genuinely just want to help them. It's not about me being the better, better out of them, right? It's not life isn't a competition. And I think that's, the bigger piece too is there that can unlock a lot of coaches, right? It's like, I just want to learn things. And you know what? Maybe something I've learned along that route and along my journey of life can be a value to you right now. There's plenty of players that have played at a really high level that struggle with drug addictions, that struggle at home with their wives and their families, and all these other things, money problems, all these things that list the piece. And I think maybe that comes from my faith and just knowing that none of us have it all figured out, and there's no areas that no value that anybody could offer me because I do all these other things, right? At the end of the day, I think when you see it from that way and you see everybody as an opportunity to grow and learn and all those things, right? You should see yourself in the same part of that journey, right? I'm on, there might be one nugget I got for you today or something like that could help or, whatever. And I'm just here to help, and I think that's the piece is just wanting to have some value and just be there to help. And I think that could be super helpful for coaches there. And then, I think the last thing I would ask you, Doug, as we kind of just wrap this guy up is, what would you say, before, what was your biggest takeaway? And it doesn't even have to be like the X's and O's and movement in the anterior pelvic tilt and all these other things too, but just from the experience as a whole, like, what did you feel like when you walked away from the event? What changed in you? Like what moved the needle in you just from experiencing in whole? Like, what did it do for you as a coach, period?
Well, I mean, I think for me, first thing it was I was a little more confident in what I how I feel I should teach certain things. Some things that I had studied with you that I hadn't brought to my athletes yet because I wasn't confident enough in that. I was able to verify that I was on the same page with what you were thinking, and it made drastic changes when I got back. The other thing, one of the biggest things is I came immediately back and talked to our 3 strength guys in our facility and said, hey, we got to get on the same page to make sure you're not going against what we're trying to do in a batting cage.
Yeah.
Because if he's going and doing the same rotation every time and there's no ability to stop, and use the front side and all that thing, then you create a lot of power that doesn't really help us much in the cage. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be on the same page with your strength coach. And I know that was one thing that I really took away from it, that now I communicate with all of our strength guys and our weight room guys and say, hey, listen, we got to make it. If we're going to do this, we got to do this twice as much. You know what I mean? So, because they like this one, we need to do this one too. So that was a big thing, that we're on the same page with our strength coaches. The other thing, like I said, it gave me confidence in what we were teaching. Some of the things we were already doing, it made me more sure that it was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? And then, so I think that's the biggest thing. But the biggest thing I took away from it was you have to be on the same page with your strength coach, because they can undo a lot of things that you're doing. And they believe they're doing the best because they're not thinking baseball specific. They're thinking sports and performance and just being great athletes.
Yeah. And they need your perspective just like you need theirs. Again, we're a village. It takes a village, and we all see things from different perspectives. And it's like, man, if we could start to speak, we don't have to, I don't need to know everything they know, and they don't need to know everything I know. But again, if we could start to speak some similar language and start to open that up. And I challenge strength coaches with this all the time. Hey, remember, the reason I don't like strength and conditioning, like the title of strength and conditioning coach, I named all of our coaches that have ever worked for us that come in. And I was like, hey, you're a performance coach. Remember, you're underneath that tree of performance. Your job is to help them perform, not just get them stronger, not just make them look more, the physique, not just, like it all comes back to performance. And so we all got to be on the same page that we're working towards performance. I want to do with them what is going to help that player perform at their highest. Not, again, if we're here and your job is to make them better at Olympic lifting, and that's the actual performance that we're training for. Okay, great. And I'm nothing against Olympic lifts. There's nothing against doing any of that. It's just keeping our home and center that what are we training for? And then what does this player need? We can help them with that. And especially if we can open up some lines of communication between what I see him struggling with on the field, and there's a way in the weight room we can help with that. And which again is primarily the body doesn't go, oh, I'm in the weight room or I'm on the baseball. It's like it's all one thing, right? And so a lot of times we break these things into pieces and they go, hey, just go get him as strong as possible. Let's get him as big as possible. And then I'll figure it out once he gets onto the field. And it's like,
no, you're absolutely right. We have a softball team right now who we put with our strength coach that I've been hitting with most of them, and they're all raking at the high school level right now with their varsity teams. And it's like, he was a big part of that because it has to be collaborative, right? And so, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And what would you, and then, you know, I think with that, right, since you tapped on that, right, what would you say, you know, with that, how's that shown up in results with your athletes? Like as you've learned and as you've done more, right, you're obviously having results before, right? That's not like no coach, every coach has results, right? That's another thing. Everybody's like, well, I've gotten results. It's like, well, yeah, of course. Like we wouldn't be coaching if we didn't get results. You're going to see results with athletes, but what would you say internally, like when you look at the results you've had with athletes, you know, as you've gone deeper and deeper into these things, how has it shown up and actually, you know, like what you're able to do with your athletes and how you're able to help?
Well, I mean, it's definitely shown up. You know, on the softball side, we have girls that are absolutely raking. We have one team that trains with us, and I think 7 of them made varsity as freshmen. A couple of them are really balling out. Going to see one of them play tonight, so that's really cool. At Clark State, we have 18 games left, 20 games left, and we've already set the school record for homers. We set that this weekend, you know, as a team. So that's shown up. We have high school seniors. There's a kid who had a really bad junior year, low batting average, whatever. This year, I think he's already got 4 pumps. And he just committed because now he's a different hitter. He's hitting almost 500 right now this spring. Yeah. And some of the stuff we learned in the fall that we came back and I was like, hey, you know, we were doing this. We're going to change your entire training and the way you hit because you actually move this way. Yeah. And I think so. I mean, then we've seen different results with our guys, and you know what I mean, and the ability to drive the baseball and stay on the baseball a little longer. And it hasn't worked, you know, obviously for everybody. So there's still some more studying to do, and there's still some guys who are a little lagging behind, and some ladies, right? And we're going to keep studying and keep doing that stuff. So you know, so we can try to reach everybody. You know, we're going to do everything in our power to reach everyone.
Yeah, no, love it. Well, anyways, no, yeah, I think thanks for coming on, Doug, and just kind of sharing your experience and like helping coaches that might be in similar stages or, you know, thoughts and just like helping people along the road. And I think it's so important for us to do that, you know, and the same way in a team, right? It's like, we used to always talk about it, man, our number one guy on the team is just as important as our guy that's, you know, fighting to stay on the roster, because the guy on the bottom of the roster is pushing everybody. Nobody wants to be last. So if he's content with being last, well, then now we're not pushing the group. But also the leader, he's got to continue to pull, right? So that everybody continues to get better too as well. And so I think it's so important, you know, as we, you know, again, continue to help coaches, is we don't, you know, lose that link in the chain, right? That we are still a community, even though we compete against each other, even though we do all these other things, that it's so important, like to the bigger whole, as coaches, just continue to pass along, you know, the opportunities to continue to pass along what we've learned and all those things. And, you know, undoubtedly that's why we wanted to have you on too, as well, because I think that there's so many ways that you could help coaches along that journey for sure.
I appreciate that, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks. All right, man. Appreciate you.